Welcome back to Breaking Bet. Your boy JohnnyVTV has returned. I apologize for the brief hiatus. I was sick and then went on vacation to the Bahamas, but fret not. I'm back and it's conference tournament time, and I brought a very special guest in. My guy, California Wager. Thank you so much for joining me, man. It's great to finally be doing some content with you, bro.
It's been fun to kind of tiptoe around each other with college baseball season, and good to be working together. Look forward to doing this more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some big events coming up here, and before we dive into any futures that you might have for the conference tournaments, give me some teams in your opinion that need a big showing for this conference tournament weekend. There's several teams that are on the outside looking in. Maybe some teams are already in, but trying to improve their seating position, maybe looking to host, or even in certain cases looking to be a top 8 national seed.
Yeah, I mean, it's that weird time of the year with college baseball where you've done all this work all season. You get to these conference tournaments. You wonder with, the top 8 to top 10, where are they in terms of arms? Where are they in terms of depth right now? And where is the motivation? Do they want to push that whole bullpen going into regional weekend? Or are they going to be like, hey, you know what? We've done the work. We've put in the time. The committee's going to see what we've done. We'll be fine. We've got a chance. We should be in a good place. A couple teams, though, that I'm hoping, maybe not going to win the whole thing, but I think need to, at least from a personal, maybe a selfish standpoint, want to see them do well getting into regional play, super regional play, and maybe getting a bigger chance. Florida State, to me, is one that I would like to see continue to play well. I have a future on them 100-1 in the World Series. I have a future 25-1 on them to make the World Series. I would like them to obviously have the best opportunity they possibly can. But on top of that, you look at a conference like the SEC, the Big 12, where home field advantage makes such a big difference versus a Pac-12, smaller, the West Coast in general, just a very different vibe. So I think there's a whole bunch of teams in the SEC that make me question. You wonder with an Arkansas, certain teams that they've got a chance. They're pretty much slotted in. They don't have to worry about it. But a team like an LSU, that's somebody I really think has, aspirations for something bigger. They've got a great lineup. They still have a lot of talent. They've been there before. I think that they have a chance to push some noise. And obviously with the odds, I like them. I know earlier you had mentioned Mississippi State. You like them kind of quietly coming out. I think that they have a lot of talent as well. And a team that's quietly been off the radar but just keeps winning and has been making money for us all year is Illinois. I think Illinois has had a great season, and they continue to just plug along. I just enjoy something like that. Something that I have not seen too much that I'm interested to look at is going to be the Big West. Obviously, Santa Barbara did what we expected them to do this year. We had them in a future. But a couple teams in that conference that I still think could make noise if they get a chance. Cal Poly has had a phenomenal season. They won for us yesterday in a free play. They've been great all year. And really off the radar, Cal State Northridge has been a team that has surprised a lot of people if you've really watched them. They played well. They blew a lead yesterday. But you get a team like that in a spot who really wants it, who's been playing well as a team all year. And nothing surprises me at this time of the year, let's just say, with college kids.
And we welcome in our second guest, P. Sweets. Thank you for joining the program, my friend. Welcome to Breaking Bet. And just to catch you up, P. Sweets, I know you're a few minutes late, but basically we were talking about teams that need a big showing for conference tournament week. And Cal Wager was talking about Florida State, LSU, Illinois, Mississippi State. Was there some other teams maybe that you think have to have a big week in order to give the committee a reason to put them in, or maybe put them in a hosting position, possibly a top 8 national seed?
I would think that pretty much every Big 12 bubble team needs to have a big showing to get in. Because I feel like if you're one of these last 4 teams in, you're not in. Because there's an average of 4 bids stolen a year. So if you're a last 4 team in, you're not in. Like that's how I would feel. So I would when I look at teams like UCF, Kansas State, TCU, I think there's Cincinnati. I think that these teams are going to have to win multiple games to get in. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. The other teams you listed were also like really super valid. Although I think the Illini probably right now are probably in. I mean, they're a top 4 RPI league. They're the league champion. And honestly, their offense is really one of the elite offenses in the United States, I feel like.
So for me, I agree. Mississippi State, the team that I have that's one of my biggest positions. I really liked Mississippi State last year, and I think I was a year too early on them. And when I was in Vegas in January for Wild Card Weekend, they were 175-1 at Caesar Sportsbook, and they're focusing on Wild Card, they're focusing on playoffs, Super Bowl, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, like this is the opening of when college baseball lines are starting to come out. So Mississippi State, they're going off the fact that they were terrible in 2023, so they don't really understand the progressions that they were set to make for this year. So, I'm riding that ticket. I think for whatever reason, RPI has just become this major metric. And I was complaining a little bit about it today, how Mississippi State 17-13, they beat Georgia head-to-head. Meanwhile, everybody's projecting them as a 2 seed when I don't understand why they're not hosting. Meanwhile, Georgia's, flirting with the top 8 national seed. And, early part of the season, they were better than Mississippi State. Fine, whatever. But I think Mississippi State's a big team. I think LSU's a big team. Mississippi State for hosting purposes, LSU just to get in. I feel like LSU right now is probably in. And let me tell you something, as a 3 seed in any region, that's a team I do not want to face. A lot of championship pedigree, obviously great coaching. They have some talent. But if we're looking a little bit more towards other conferences, got to say Coastal Carolina, guys. That's a team that I think we all expected to be in the running to take the Sun Belt regular season. We're expecting a 45-win type of year for them in Gary Gilmore's farewell tour. They have not lived up to the billing. The pitching was obviously going to always be a concern, especially when they lost their guy, Teddy Sharkey, who was one of the best closers in college last year. The offense is not exactly where we've seen it in years past. So I think the Chanticleers definitely need a big weekend and not necessarily even win. I think they got to win maybe 1 or 2 games in order to kind of push them through a little bit. And then I would say Northeastern is a team that I'm also very high on. That's definitely my single biggest position, just because the odds were so great. I got them at 2,500-1 in that wild card weekend at Caesars. I expected them, like a lot of people, to win their conference, and they were slow this year, but they have the talent. And I feel like if they can find a way to get in, they're going to be liable to pull off some upsets a la Oral Roberts last year. So I think Northeastern definitely has to win a couple games. Doesn't hurt for them to win their conference. I think that would obviously legitimately officially cement them in there because that's an automatic bid. But, those are definitely the teams that I'm looking at. And one more here for you guys. Just want to throw it out there. We're talking about ACC, and obviously FSU is a team, Cal, that you brought up, and I agree. I think FSU's hosting, but I'd really love to see a deep run here this week to try and push them into that top 8 national seed conversation. But let's talk about NC State. I am very impressed with the Wolfpack. They have not lost a series since the first week in April when they got swept at Louisville. They've had some big wins against Clemson, Virginia, UNC, swept Wake. I think after sweeping Wake, they're not only in a contention to obviously make the tournament, but I think now they're really trending towards the number 1 seed. So, Sweets, what do you think about that?
The Pack have really come on here lately, and it would be hard for me to try to say anything to derail them. I agree with you. The seasons have ebbs and flows, and going in to postseason play, playing this well, I don't think that's something the committee is going to overlook. Because honestly, I kind of feel like the committee probably doesn't watch as much baseball as we do, and they're probably have watched the last 2 weeks or so, and they're probably going to take a premium on how teams are playing going in, as opposed to earlier in the season wins in neutral venues probably don't carry as much weight as going to someone else's house and getting dubs. So, yeah, I agree with you. They're making a strong case. They're coming together. I think with Duke also really is not going to be a one. So, at least not right now. You got to figure that it's a great spot for NC State to come in and make a move on that.
I think Duke lost their shot to host. I was very disappointed. I thought they were going to take the series last weekend against UNC. They take game one, and then they're unable to get it done in game two, and then they just got flat out mopped in game three. So that was disappointing. I don't think Duke deserves to be a host after that. Although, I think that's okay, because if they were hosting, I feel like they'd be looking at somewhere between 14, 15, and 16. And you're having to go to some of the really tough SEC schools. So I think that's ultimately okay. I don't mind seeing Duke as, say, a 2 seed in East Carolina region. I think East Carolina is very tough, especially at home, but it is a region where I believe the Blue Devils can ultimately win. For me, Sweets, I think NC State's a team I'm definitely looking at, not only, to make some noise in the conference, or not just the conference tournament and the NCAA tournament, but I do think, there's spots that you could get them at 66-1. I don't know if the Wolfpack necessarily have enough pitching to get it done, but, with the right draw, NC State is definitely a team that I think can get to Omaha, and you're getting one of the better prices out of any team that's trending up right now on them. Sweets, we lose you?
No, I'm here. Yeah. I'm just looking at the metrics of the league itself and how it finished off. I mean, NC State finished 18-11 in league. I mean, they were just a game and a half back of Clemson, and they're 12-14 in quad one games, which honestly, that's a crazy number to get that many quad one games. And to be almost 500 in quad one games. But a lot of these losses, I think, came earlier in the season. I mean, you're going to see there are teams that they're projecting in that are like 6-14 in quad one games. So NC State here, being 12-14 in quad one, 3-2 in quad two. I mean, that to me, I mean, the fact that they've played so many of these high quality opponents and that they're playing really well right now. Like I said, seasons have ebbs and flows. And when you have a team that's coming in playing this well, and I mean, like before Wake Forest, they had 3 games with Virginia. They took 2 out of 3 in Charlottesville. That's a really pretty impressive win. They played Florida State. They had one of the games canceled. They split there. They won 8-7 in the first game and then got killed in the third game. But let's see. Before that, I mean, Ball State is a 30-win team. They swept them right out of their house, no problem. They dropped a game to ECU, and before that, they took 2 out of 3 from North Carolina. I mean, that's a really impressive run of baseball right here. Like in their house and other people's house, like that's just really solid baseball up and down.
And Cal, what do you think here? NC State in terms of a futures 66-1 out there. You buying it?
Yeah, I mean, I took NC State in terms of winning it in terms of the tournament too. I like them. They've been solid all year. Serrano actually played for Serrano's father back in the day in college, so it's kind of fun to see it come full circle and see him playing so well. But I love to see this team. They fight. There's nothing to me that stands out more than anything that they play as a team. They seem passionate. They never give up. You've seen multiple games where they've made these massive comebacks. That says a lot to me as a team, especially coming tournament time. So I do like NC State to make some noise. And with the value there, you never know. So I do like him in the tournament and getting a chance with that kind of value in CWS.
I think it's good value. The only thing that's making me hesitate right now on firing, because I have a very healthy and well-rounded portfolio. It's diversified. So the big thing for me is last year I was on Wake Forest preseason. I had a bundle on them. And what do? They get up 2 games on LSU, and they can't get one more and get to the finals against Florida, who I also had a futures on. They decide to rip my heart out of my chest. But I had to learn, you got to have a diversified portfolio in this game because it is very difficult. So the one thing that's holding me back is I need to see where they go in terms of seeding. Are they a 1 seed? And if they're a 1 seed, are they a 15 and they're going to play maybe Tennessee, or are they a 16 and they play Kentucky? If they end up being a 16 and then Kentucky's the 1, then I'm okay with that because I think they can beat Kentucky. But if they're playing Tennessee or A&M in the Super Regional, I'm a little bit more hesitant. So that's the one thing where I'm waiting on before I officially fire a bullet there. But Cal, I need you to kick us off here against the SEC tournament. Where's the value in the SEC tournament, Cal?
To me, the SEC is going to be – I've got to stick with what I said earlier. I like LSU. I mean, I do. 13-1. Like we said, they've got a lot right now they can prove. They can make a big statement getting there, and it can lead them into a bigger situation for the regionals. So I do like where they have that value right now. I mean, 13-1 to me is pretty tasty. The other side as well, and you'd mentioned it too, is 9-1 with Mississippi State. They find that time and get hot at the right moment, and I like where they are right now. I think that both of those have some good value.
What about you,
This is a question I would ask about this league. Which team do you think has like the deepest pitching, like the most like rubber arms, like that could win a big grinded out type of tournament like this? That's like the number one question that I would ask.
Yeah.
So
who's
here's
got
the
the
thing.
arms, like who's got the rubber arms to get there?
Here's the thing. This is why it's so interesting, because every tournament has its own format. It's not like there's one universal format for every conference tournament, and the SEC is weird. So for people that don't know, tomorrow there's a bunch of bracket 1 games. Every team that made the SEC tournament is playing except for the top 4 seeds that automatically advance to the double elimination part of the bracket, which is Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. And if you're those 4 teams, obviously you have a great shot at winning because you have extra rest, and you're going right into a double elimination part. But now the issue is all 4 of those teams, they're comfortable. They have nothing to play for. They're going to be top 8 national seeds. There's no real incentive for these guys to be throwing their key players, get them an extra week of rest, maybe a little bit of a tune-up, but I don't think they're going to go balls to the wall trying to get this done. So that's where I think it's very interesting. So Tennessee, A&M, Arkansas, Kentucky are the 4 favorites, but I'd be honest to say I don't think any 4 are going to win. It's not because they can't win. It's because they don't see a reason to. So I almost want to, just for value and that fact, eliminate those 4 teams, and then you're kind of playing with the rest of the field. And, in terms of the pitching, I don't think any of these teams are littered with pitching. So then you start going with who's the best. And I think it's very clear that Mississippi State, Georgia, and LSU are probably the 3 most talented teams. And, of course, you can't count out Florida, but out of all of those teams, they have the least amount of pitching.
What about the case for Bama here? I think they have actually a pretty solid resume. I'm not going to look through it here. But I was listening to something earlier that was making the case that Bama actually has the arms to grind it out here. I'd just like to bounce that off. That's something that, I'm actually more of a Big 12 person. Like if I was going to tell you the league that I follow the most, like die hard, it's the Big 12. But I follow the SEC, pretty well. But I don't know about that statement. Like, do you think that Bama has the arms to sell out to try to win this tournament?
I think, and I tweeted this yesterday or the other day, I think one of the bracket one teams, one of them will be in the conference finals. I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's most likely either LSU or Georgia. And it's great because that's the first game that we get tomorrow. And I think that's an awesome matchup. And they're both 12-1. So I took them both. So, I didn't really take a position in terms of the game itself tomorrow. But Bama's tough. It wouldn't surprise me. South Carolina is a tough team. It's not an unbeatable team. And then they got to go right to Arkansas, I believe, the winner of that game. So I'm not going to say Bama doesn't have a chance because they do, but I feel like tomorrow is more of a 50-50 game that they can very well lose. Maybe if Bama gets past South Carolina, then they got to go deal with Arkansas, then possibly. I just think this is a very muddied field, and I just feel like Georgia, Mississippi State, and LSU are better. And, maybe Bama does have the most pitching, but even still, it's not – I don't think it's good enough for me to sit there and say it's a definitive advantage. I mean, they probably have the best closer with Alton Davis, but I don't think it's a bad theory. I'm not buying Alabama, in my opinion, because I think South Carolina does have a relatively good shot tomorrow, even against Greg Ferrone.
I mean, if you look at their resume, Bama, I mean, they're 12-1 against quad 4. They're 4-1 against quad 3. They're 4-1 against quad 2, and they're 13-18. And I would assume a majority of these losses are within conference against quad 1. I mean, 4-1, 4-1, and 12-1. That tells me that these guys just don't really lose to lesser competition, and the level of competition they're playing within league. If I had to pick one of these teams, I think that, to me, Bama would be that value. Because, I mean, they're almost 500 with the big dogs, and they just don't really lose. They don't seem like they really lose or have off days against lesser teams. That's just kind of like me looking from the outside in. That's like the case I would make.
It's strong reasoning. Cal, do you think Bama's got the shot here, or are we still sticking with LSU? What kind of logic do you see with Alabama's path?
I mean, Bama couldn't, get hot and make that run, but I still worry offensively, and you get up against the right offense. Sometimes it doesn't matter who you have on the hill, and can they keep up if they do fall behind and have to go to that bullpen early and start burning some of that pitching? So it is a concern, but like you said, there is value on it. And again, as you mentioned, there's so much to think about in terms of what these top teams are or not, planning to do this weekend.
That's a big if. And just as a reminder, last year Texas A&M lost in the conference finals to Vanderbilt, but they were a bracket one team. They made it all that way. They had to go and play 6 games in 6 days. They were pulling pitchers out I never even heard of. The amount of just resilience that they had to show. So that is definitely a possibility for a team that's playing out of this bracket one that's got to go play this amount of games in this amount of days. And ultimately, you have to have a lot of pitching, or in theory, you have to have guys step up. But at the same time, you got to have an offense that could score. And that's why, you're going to be picking guys bottom of the barrel. You're going to be picking guys that maybe only have a few innings under their belt this year, and you're going to be relying on a lot of different combinations. So you have to be able to score because you're not going to be able to silence every offense. So that's why I think, a Georgia and an LSU is best served. Alabama probably has the pitching advantage, maybe in terms of depth, but like Cal said, I don't know if they have that offense. It's definitely possible. I just feel like, in terms of top to bottom, Georgia's gotten away with the combination that they've had to throw out there all year. So, I don't hate it, Sweets. I don't know if that's the direction that I'm going, but I think if your lodging is sound, which it sounds like it is, it's not a terrible play.
Right on. I mean, I will say that LSU is the hotter team. They're coming in with more steam, whereas Bama is just kind of like 5-5 in their last 10 games. Whereas LSU is coming off a sweep, 7-3 in their last 10. In sports, there's like the sense of urgency that people talk about. I'm not sure that really applies to baseball as much, but a team with this kind of experience, when you're talking about LSU, I mean, I think they've been in these big moments and they can rise to the occasion. That's for sure. They definitely have the pedigree. And honestly, I mean, wouldn't this kind of save their season in a way? I mean, there's always that motivation factor when you're talking about college athletes. I mean, you had a 13-17 season in the conference, but if you were to win the conference, I mean, people would forget about your overall record real quick. And that's like kind of legend status in a way to win these tournaments when you're like an underdog like that. And that's definitely like a motivation for the college kids. Definitely, the big man on campus legend status is big time in effect, like pretty much from here on out. And a team like LSU could definitely rise up to that occasion, just given who they are. I'll say that.
I agree. Sweets. Let's get to the ACC. We got to get moving here. So, real quick, what's the team that you like in the ACC for this conference tournament?
For me, I am going to go. I mean, I went to a Clemson game in person, and I'm gonna stick with. I guess I'm playing it safe here. I'm gonna stick with Clemson.
All right, I'm going with NC State, and I have a little FSU as well. So both of these here are 10-1. I actually gave them out on Bet Rivers before FanDuel came out with lines. Just kind of sticking with the NC State theory that they're playing hot, and FSU I do like. I think they have enough juice in order to make a run here. It's 4 different pools: A, B, C, and D. UNC's in A, Clemson's in B, Florida State's in C, and NC State's in D. So I do think, depending on the matchups, they can play each other once we get to the semifinals. But if you're giving me 10-1 on the hottest team in the ACC, which is NC State, that's beaten all of the teams that are ahead of them in UNC, Clemson, Virginia, Duke, and Wake, I definitely think there's enough value there for us to take a stab at that 10-1 number. So the Wolfpack, give them to me. I feel like this is a team that is definitely riding high, and they do have a lot to play for. While UNC is probably a top 8 seed, Clemson's a top 8 seed, Virginia's hosting, Duke's a number 2, and Wake Forest is probably on the outside looking in for a hosting position. And we lost Cal Wager. He's having internet issues, but we'll circle back to that one when he.
What about a case for one of the longer ones? I'll throw these 2 out for like really like long ones. What about Georgia Tech and Louisville? You give those guys a chance?
No.
Like, I mean, they're like down there, but they've been playing the second half of the season much better, both of these teams. And I think actually probably Georgia Tech is an at-large team right now, and Louisville is a bubble team that could play themselves in. Maybe this league is very, very highly regarded, right? I mean, the top 2 leagues are definitely the ACC and the SEC, with the Big 12 being kind of a distant third. And then the Big 10 being 4th. Like, this is a league that could definitely people could definitely play their way in by getting some. I mean, all these are going to be big RPI wins for people up and down. And I tell you, Georgia Tech has been really feisty here. And, Louisville, they could play themselves in. And, those are, I mean, at 15-1, I mean, like, Virginia Tech to me has been playing so poorly, like, this past month, that I just don't give them really a shot. Like, Miami, Florida, I don't give them a shot. Pittsburgh, I mean, they got their season came to sweeping FSU. Like, that's like that made their season. Like, I don't really see it. Like, value wise, definitely NC State. I'm with you there. Not throw in Georgia Tech and Louisville, but to me, I just feel like I've seen Clemson in person, and I just don't feel like they're going to lose. That's just, although, I mean, I'm going to admit they don't really have maybe the pitching and maybe the motivation to win it. I mean, they're number 1 seed definitely all the way down the line, like you were saying earlier. So that's kind of like my 2 cents on the ACC right there.
All right, now let's get to the Big 12. I personally think this is Texas all the way. Texas is red hot right now. They've really turned it on at the end of the season. I do think Oklahoma, they're definitely in contention to be a top 8 seed, so there's not too much incentive for them to kind of go heavy with this. Oklahoma State's probably a host right now, if I had to guess. West Virginia is an interesting candidate, 7-1. And then, if we're going down the line with like Kansas State, UCF, TCU, Texas Tech, I just don't love what I'm seeing from these other teams. TCU was one that I was very interested in, but, the pitching outside of Peyton Tolley is very suspect. The offense isn't what it was last year. So I feel like TCU is actually, they're playing WVU tomorrow in the first game, and that's huge for them. So I don't really love TCU here, even given the 21-1 price even. So I think Texas, this is what they do, Sweets. This is what they do. They don't play well early in the year. Middle of the year, they start kind of getting it together. Then the end of the year, they get hot. Every single year, this is what we see with the Longhorns. And they start being able to win a region and get into a super region, maybe get into Omaha. So I'm rolling with the Longhorns here. I got them past 4-1. I think this is definitely the best play for me. They got Texas Tech tomorrow, and if they beat them, they have a very favorable path in order to get to the finals.
At the beginning of the season, the preseason favorite to win this league was TCU at plus 300. Oklahoma won the league at plus 1,200. And now they've got Oklahoma plus 300 to win this tournament. And then they got Texas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Really, it's really going to be one of those top 4 teams. I don't see the only team outside of that could make any sort of run, and that's really, and I'm really only saying this because they are going to sleep in their own bed right there in Fort Worth every night, is TCU, who has turned it on in this tournament. I mean, they turned it on last year like nobody's business. I mean, they came out and they won the league. I mean, they're like the local team, right? I mean, they're going to be sleeping in their own bed every night. But I'll say this: West Virginia played at TCU. I bet West Virginia in that series plus 140 or better. All 3 games. They took 2 out of 3. West Virginia hasn't left Texas. They are acclimated. They stayed there. They just played these guys. Mazey coached at TCU. And I think West Virginia is honestly the value play here because you have a retiring coach, right? And it's like one of those college stories. It's like, I don't want to say it's like Dan Monson at Long Beach State because it's not that he's not getting fired. I mean, he's retiring, but the level of emotion and these kids, let me tell you, West Virginia's got a lot of left-handed pitchers, and they have just an awesome hitting lineup now that Weatherhold, once he returned, they got on fire. So I feel like from like one of those, Disney movie perspectives, West Virginia has to be a play here at plus 700. They really do, because it almost feels like house money to me. Like they're playing loose. They're playing for their coach. They seem like one of these stories. And honestly, I feel like West Virginia is a team that's going to make a super regional based off of this emotion and playing for their coach.
I don't hate it, to be honest. I think WVU for my money would be the second team. So if I was taking another ticket, I would probably go West Virginia. I do agree with you. I think this is a good value here. I like the matchup if they can get past TCU tomorrow. I do think there is a path for them in order to kind of get through. I think they'd probably have to get through Oklahoma. That's the one big if for me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Texas would face Oklahoma State if they win. I might be reading that incorrectly, but if it's Texas against Oklahoma State, they handled them earlier in the year. So I do think the Longhorns for me would be the top choice. value, straight pick. And then West Virginia isn't a bad another team to take a ticket on. So I think for me, WVU is a team that I'm going to be looking at. So if you look at it like this, if West Virginia, which is on my card for tomorrow, we'll get into that game in a little bit, they beat TCU, and let's say West Virginia then has to go play Oklahoma, they're probably going to be a 145-ish dog. That's where I'd probably roll it over. So I think for me, there's probably as good of a chance to play West Virginia every game and just roll them over if you like them, because, I just don't know in a 1v1 if Texas plays them, West Virginia is going to win. That's really where I'm kind of falling into a little bit of a daze. But I do think they're a good play here. I don't hate the Mountaineers.
The Ears
whatsoever.
to me are not a team that are going to lose back-to-back games. They might drop a game, but they're not going to lose back-to-back games. This Ear TCU game is a really big game because the winning team, I feel like, is poised to make a run here. Is gonna have a lot of wind in their sails, and they're gonna try. Like I tell you, some of these teams I don't give any shot to. Like I honestly, like, I don't give Texas Tech any shot. I don't give UCF any shot. I don't give Kansas any shot. I don't even really give Kansas State a shot. Cincinnati, really super long odds. I think that's like some level of disrespect. But whether that should be a play for someone, I don't know about that. I mean, outside of being a Bearcat fan, I mean, a bad bet, just because it's value doesn't, 15-1, I mean, you might think it's value, but really, TCU is a type of team to me that is not in right now. And
TCU, that's a coin.
I mean, sorry, I meant Cincinnati. I meant to say Cincinnati.
Oh, Cincinnati? Yeah, probably. But, TCU, I do think you're right with the winner of TCU West Virginia might be a handful here. I'd probably lean West Virginia being the team where we're probably going to see them make a deep run here this week. But, listen, if you could get plus 410, plus 400 on Texas. I think that's a perfectly good number for a team that probably has, in my opinion, the best shot to win. I feel like, pitching wise, it's a wash, maybe in favor of Texas even. The offense, I think right now might be, a little bit more of a coin flip because J.J. Weatherholt's back and he accounts for so much. He's one of the best players in the country. This is a guy that was number one on a lot of preseason big boards for the draft. And, it's definitely there. But I feel like maybe in terms of lineup depth, I'd probably give it to Texas. But the star power is definitely in favor of WVU. No,
I mean, you make a solid case here for Texas. I can't knock you. You make a really solid case for also just betting West Virginia individually. I mean, these are great like feathers to have in your cap. It's always great to have options because, things change so much on any given day to be able to protect bets and do things like that. Now, I mean, you've made a really, really, really solid case here for this league. I think we've gone over this one really well.
Sweet. Let's hit the Pac-12 here. We got a couple games that we got to talk to. All right, Oregon State's leading the way at plus 125. Then you got Oregon, Arizona, USC, Arizona State, Cal, Stanford, Utah, Washington. I'll start this one. Oregon State is a team I have a lot of exposure with. I had them winning the Pac-12, and it came down to Saturday's game, about to sweep Arizona. That's what it was going to take for them to win the regular season. This is a conference that I thought they were going to win by 6 or 7 games. I didn't think anybody was going to be close to them. I didn't think Arizona was going to be that good this year. Their pitching was a huge surprise. Their offense actually picked up the slack, even though they lost Chase Davis and Mac Bingham in the offseason. But Oregon State is just too short, in my opinion. I would like to see Oregon State win a couple games here just to kind of see if we can push them into top 8 contention. I feel like if the regions came out right now, Oregon State would probably be somewhere between 9 and 11. Would love to see them be hosting Corvallis in the Super Regionals. Oregon, I don't love the number at 350, but I think Arizona for me at 410, they're hot right now. They have 3 really good starters. They have an offense that's death by 1,000 cuts. I think the Wildcats are the play here, and chances are Oregon State and Arizona end up matching up in this conference finals. If I had to make a prediction, and if that's the case, and you take Arizona at this number, you would be able to hedge Oregon State in that conference final game, locking in a little bit of a profit here. So give me the Wildcats. I think this is the play. They're one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the conference right now. And it's a way better number than Oregon State. So I don't know your thoughts if you also like Arizona.
Arizona preseason was 12-1 to win league, and they got it done. I think Oregon State was like maybe minus 120 or something even to win this league.
They were like 175. I got them at plus 175.
They were a dominating favorite to win the league. Arizona comes out of nowhere and wins as a middle of the pack 12-1 team. It's kind of a downish year and it's the last year of this league. And I wonder what kind of respect they're going to get on the way out of the door. I really question who's fighting for this league right now inside that committee room. But, looking at it, Cal is a bubble team. USC is playing their best baseball right now. Arizona State is a team that can put up a lot of runs. I actually thought that California was going to win this league preseason, and I bet them at 25-1. And they just really had kind of a so-so year. It's a tougher league for me to read this year to come out and do something. It's like you said, it's way too short of a number to really do anything with Oregon State. But I think it's going to actually be one of these teams from the bottom that you're not going to see coming. I think it's going to be a USC, Cal, or maybe even Utah is going to win this league. That's one of my predictions. I think it's going to be a team that no one is going to see coming. And I would think it's going to be one of those three, which is really coming out of nowhere. Let me tell you, this is probably not a popular opinion with people, but I really think that it will be either USC, Cal, or Utah. And they're going to steal a bid from someone. Like I said, if you're a last four team in, I wouldn't feel good about getting in because of teams like this and of leagues.
I think Utah. If I had to pick one of those teams, I love their ace. I like USC a lot. This is a team that I had some regard for coming into the year. I don't love the pitching outside of Caden Aoki. It's been a little bit disappointing, but I think Utah is probably the team where I would go. But Sweets, we got to get moving on the games here. Sweets, we got to get moving on the games here. So let's go. Let's get started with Georgia Tech against FSU. No confirmed pitching matchups, but FSU is a minus 150 favorite. These two teams just played a weekend series last weekend, so it's basically an extension of that. You think Florida State gets it done, or is it Georgia Tech for the upset?
You know what, man? I don't think that Florida State is coming in here really playing that great. They got swept by Pitt. I watched them lose to Stetson on a weekday game, and I feel like Georgia Tech here's got more to play for. Florida State's in, so I'm going to roll the dice here on the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech.
I don't hate it. I'm going to go FSU just because they took the series. I think FSU does have something to play for. They're probably right now in the 10 seed range. I think maybe if they win 2, 3, 4 games here, we could be looking at a FSU top 8 national seed. So I'm going with the Seminoles, but I don't hate your opinion here on Georgia Tech. I just get a little bit worried about the pitching. And one thing that I'm very, very curious to see with Florida State is if we see Cam Leiter not only this weekend, but maybe early in the week, like game 1. I think that would be very appealing. And I think Cam Leiter coming out, throwing 3 good innings here would be something that would be very welcoming.
It says 91% of the bets on DraftKings New York, 91% of the bets on Florida State.
Listen, that doesn't matter though. It doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't mean anything, especially the fact that there's probably not even that much money that's come in. There's probably a very small handle in this game total. So to me, that doesn't really make much of a difference. But let's get to the next game here. We got the Florida Gators plus 110 at the Vanderbilt Commodores. We do have the pitching matchup here. It's Pierce Coppola for the Gators, and the Vanderbilt Commodores will be throwing Bryce Cunningham, the guy who has become their Friday night guy over most of the season. For me, I'm going Vandy. I think Florida's going to be tough. I do. But, Pierce Coppola, he struggled. Cunningham has been relatively solid this year. The Commodores took the series against this Gators team early in the year. And, for me, I know Florida probably has more to play for, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win. I think Vandy right now is a solid number with a very big pitching advantage here.
I mean, isn't this Vanderbilt's time of the year, right? I mean, they've got the coach, right? The attitude, the coach. This is like their time of the year. Florida on the road is what? On the road, Florida is a 9-12 team and 0-1 in neutral. So I'm going to side with Vanderbilt here too.
All right. Magnolia State rematch. Mississippi State blew an opportunity to take the series. That's just seemingly what they've done this year. If they manage to not blow some of these leads, they might be a top 5 national seed. They had an opportunity to take some big series this year, but I think it's time for a little payback here, Sweets. Mississippi State, a short money line favorite over Ole Miss. It's going to be Brooks Auger for the Bulldogs, and the Rebels are throwing their Friday guy, Riley Maddox. Maddox has been hit or miss. I'm going with the Bulldogs here. I think we're going to see Mississippi State win maybe 2 or 3 games in the SEC tournament. I think they're going to try and make one last Hail Mary push to be a host, which I think they already should be, but they're right now on the outside looking in, apparently. I feel like Ole Miss, they're kind of running out of gas here. Do you think they have any shot, or is it Mississippi State all the way?
Honestly, I feel like if Ole Miss was in the Big West, they would just be a middle of the pack team in the Big West. Even I just don't think they're a very good team this year. They had some sort of hype around them earlier, and I didn't buy into it, and I'm not buying into it now. It's merciful for the Ole Miss season to come to an end. Let's just put it that way. I mean, they're a sub 500 team overall.
Yeah, it's got to come to an end. A game that we don't want to end. We're just talking about it. TCU, a big -160 favorite against West Virginia. We do have the pitching matchup for that one, and it's going to be Carson Estridge for WVU against Caedmon Parker, 2 guys that are not legitimate weekend starters, but we talked about it, Sweets. I think this is WVU's game. You're getting them at a nice plus money price. They took the series last weekend. It's basically like for Florida State, Georgia Tech, an extension of what we just saw. And West Virginia is playing good baseball right now. I feel like TCU, the only time I'd really give them a shot here is if Peyton Tolley was on the mound. Big 12 pitcher of the year just came out, but he's not pitching. And I'd give West Virginia's offense the nod here as well. So you're giving me too much of a number with the Mountaineers, especially when they have a better offense.
Country road, just that simple. Take me home.
Take me home. Virginia Tech, plus 110 at the Duke Blue Devils, -140. No pitching has come out here, but to be honest, knowing how good Duke's bullpen is, the kind of arms they have, the offensive advantage they have, I feel like -140 is a fair price. I don't know if Duke's going to push for a hosting seat outside of winning the conference tournament, but I feel like we should be able to see Duke win at least 1 or 2 games this week in Charlotte. So give me the -140 price.
I mean, Virginia Tech is just playing so poorly. And honestly, what do they have left in the tank after losing to Virginia like that? Like, you got to pick yourself up after a big rivalry game where you fell flat on your face, and now you got to play Duke to keep your season going. I don't think this is a great spot for the Hokie Birds. I lean Duke heavily here. I mean, without a pitching matchup, it's like, kind of hard to say, but I mean, just from the narrative, I would lean heavily to Duke.
And Duke just lost to UNC, so I think they're a little pissed off, ready to take it out on Virginia Tech. All right, this is a game that I really like. This is one of my favorite looks of the day. Texas at Texas Tech, -160 against +124. It's going to be Ace Whitehead against Kyle Robinson. Texas beat the shit out of the Red Raiders early in the season. I think this was the opening of Big 12 play. It's a little different because they're playing at Globe Life. Globe Life is a much bigger field. It's a lot harder to hit home runs, so we're probably not going to see as many long balls. But I think overall Texas is the better team. They're playing hot. I think they're going to win the tournament, conference tournament, that is. And I'm comfortable laying the -160 here. This is probably my best bet of the day.
This is a lock. This is a straight up lock.
Don't say that.
I mean, let me tell you, Texas Tech here is going to get bounced in 2 games. And this is a potential game. I did a lot of research on this game. This game here has the potential to be a complete and total blowout for the Texas Longhorns because Texas Tech is basically going to have to go all in on their next game. So if their starter gets shelled, they're going to leave him in there. Whatever arms, I mean, if they get down here early, like 5-0 within 3 innings, this game could be really, really, really ugly.
Well, I'm knocking wood on that one there, but let's just do a quick dive. Since Texas lost the series to BYU in the first weekend of April, they went on to beat Houston, they beat TCU, they beat Oklahoma, they beat Oklahoma State, they beat UCF, and they just swept Kansas. I mean, it's red hot right now. The matchup is in favor of Texas. The trending directions are in favor of Texas. So we're all in on the Longhorns. We're knocking wood. We never say anything's a lock, but we do really like this game.
Let me tell you, that was a really super impressive sweep of a Kansas team that was on the bubble and at least had to win 1 game to stay there. They totally popped the Bluebird bubble right there. I mean, Texas, I mean, you don't want to use the L word, but I feel very strongly about this game here. I feel very strongly about the Longhorns in this spot.
This is a game I'm very intrigued by. We haven't had a lot of chances to bet on them this year. They have not been out on the market, but we get our chance here, and that's the Austin Peay Governors as a small -120 favorite over Gulf Coast. We haven't seen pitching matchups for this one, but just given how great this offense is, Lyle Miller Green snubbed for a Golden Spike semifinalist. Austin Peay, whatever happens in this tournament, I mean, they're in. I don't think whether they win the conference tournament or lose this game, it's going to impact their position for the regionals. I think they're a 4 seed. Just depends where they go. But I do like Austin Peay here. I think we could see a lot of runs being scored in this game, especially the fact is if Andrew Devine doesn't pitch, which I highly doubt he does here, that's their best guy. I feel like we might see 20 runs here tomorrow, but I'm going Austin Peay.
I tell you, this is a really super underrated league. This is going to be a great tournament. Whatever team comes out of here is not going to be a team anyone wants to play. The Governors are right up there with the best in this league. And you're not going to get a fade from me. Let's just put it that way. I agree with you. I like Austin Peay in this spot.
There's only one spot Austin Peay was for the futures. It was 500 to 1. I took a little nibble, knowing that they're most likely not going to win, but I definitely believe Austin Peay is a 4 seed that is going to be a nightmare for whichever host has them. And it wouldn't be surprising to see Austin Peay win a region. And if they won a region, you never know who they match up with in the super regions. There's not many offenses in the country that's better than Austin Peay. It's very, very reminiscent of the Campbell Camels. Sweets, we save the best for last here. LSU, small -135 favorite over Georgia. Again, no pitching matchups. We're seeing a possibility that Gage Jump gets the start tomorrow, but that's just kind of hearsay. It's probably not going to be Luke Holman. Luke Holman threw on Friday. I do think Jump is a very good candidate to get the start here. No idea about Georgia. I'm not playing this game personally, like I said, because I have both of these teams at 12-1 to win the SEC tournament. So it doesn't really make sense for me to give out a play here. But if I had to side, if Gage Jump pitches, I'd probably side with LSU. If it's anybody else for the Tigers, then I probably would side Georgia.
I'm not totally sold on Georgia. Regular season is regular season. This is LSU's time of year. So I lean LSU. Prove it to me that you're up here with the big boys in this league and beat these guys. And until you've done that, then I'm not going to be able to back you. Let's just put it that way.
I think the pitching is a big problem, dude. I think it's a big problem. That's why I didn't take any futures on them. I have a nice bit of Charlie Condon, Golden Spikes from the first couple of days of March. But to be honest, I think the fact is, and we saw it on display perfectly this past weekend, Florida, they had an opportunity on Friday to win the series, knock Florida out completely of the tournament. Georgia probably would have cemented themselves as a top 8 seed. And what do? Their pitching implodes in the bullpen. They have a 2-run lead in the 8th inning, and they leave this slapdick Zeldin in to throw 90 pitches when he's clearly out of gas, when he's clearly ineffective. And I just honestly don't think Georgia is a team that can make a run because they don't have that one guy. Most of these teams had one guy. Last year, even with a team like Campbell, they had the guy, Cade Cooler, stud. But, if you look at Georgia, they don't have that. LSU's got the guy. They have Luke Holman. So I think that's ultimately going to be their demise. They don't have a bullpen. So I think it's a big problem for the Bulldogs moving forward. I'd probably see Georgia win a region. Depends who they drew in the Supers, but I don't really see Georgia winning the College World Series. Probably not even making it to Omaha.
Georgia, to me, kind of reminds me of Auburn last year. And I don't know if you remember what happened to Auburn in the postseason, but, I question Georgia when it counts. Let's just put it that way. They got to prove it to me.
As do I. But want to thank you so much for tuning in. Sweets, thank you so much for having us. But before we let you go, my full card for tomorrow is Texas moneyline, Mississippi State moneyline, Duke moneyline, FSU moneyline, WVU moneyline, Austin P moneyline, and Vanderbilt. May add some other stuff, waiting for some totals and some run lines. And if you missed it, my favorite conference tournament futures for the ACC, I like NC State, FSU. Big 12, I like Texas. Pac-12, I like Arizona. SEC, I like a nibble on both LSU and Georgia.
Right on. I would throw – here's one we didn't talk about, but I was hoping we would, but I'll just throw it out there. I like Murray State at 10-1 to win the Missouri Valley. That's my one play that we didn't talk about. I'm not a believer in any of the other teams in that league right now. I'm not a believer in Evansville. I'm not a believer in USC, and I'm not a believer in Indiana State. I feel like Murray State's playing the hottest coming in. And to me, 10-1's like a lot of value. So that's the one thing we didn't talk about that I want to talk about, and I'll end it on that right there.
Well, Sweets, thank you so much for joining, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Best of luck this week. Stay tuned. I'll be having more podcasts and more plays put out. Best of luck, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.